Once upon a time, there lived a monster. Nobody has ever seen it, but everyone was afraid of it. People always gathered their finest harvest and would put it in the finest weaved baskets. They decorated with the finest tender flowers and herbs and carry it all the way to the high mountain on their backs, sweating for days and nights. They would leave it there and hope that monster takes the food and feeds on it without the need of coming down to the village and feeding on the villagers. And so the story lived. It was passed from generation to generation, from grandfather to grandson, from grandmother to granddaughter. And the story of the monster lived. Every year, villagers would go with their gifts and offerings. And this year was no different. Finest of tulips were packed. Forget-me-nots gently lied on the apples that smelled so divine that all the kids gathered around, jumping and hoping that at least one of them would fall and they would catch it. But adults shushed them away. Shush, shush, shush! This is for the monster. That's not for you. Go play elsewhere. There's some apples left on the trees. But Mama, those are the nicest. They have such beautiful pink sides and they smell so good. Go away, I told you, the mother would shush the child. And giggling, they would scatter like peas and run away playing. And so when everything was gathered, people started to move. And over time that became a ritual of sorts. A festival, if you like. So almost all of them would go. And as the village would empty, as the villagers walked up to the mountain to leave the offerings to the monster, they also would take all the animals with them, as they couldn't simply leave them behind. And so behind the people were the herd of cows and sheep and different house birds, chickens and roosters and ducks and many other ones. And there by the sides would be their dogs, and this year also a litter of puppies, 2 that were already doing so great and herding all the sheep around, and 1 that was the smallest and the weakest and always will be left behind. He seemed to be more interested in the forget-me-nots in the baskets than playing with his siblings or doing his little puppy duties. And so he, too, would be rushed by his mum. Come on, woof, come here, quicker, woof, woof. And he would run, falling occasionally, for his ears were bigger and longer than his feet and paws. And so the procession moved. And after days and nights, they came to the place where they usually left the offerings for the monster. And as they did this time, after singing songs and leaving the baskets on the rock opening, suddenly they heard a noise. Silence. Everyone got tense looking around, for you see, for all the time that they were bringing offerings to the monster, they still never seen it. This year, they expected the same. Leave the offering, sing the songs, return back, and live happily ever after. But the noise suggested something else. They all froze in place, afraid to look at each other, or indeed to where the noise came from. Oh, they heard, and suddenly they saw a huge black shape come out of the rock. They stood there, afraid to move, hoping that the monster would just pass. "What are you bringing me this year?" they heard the voice. And the bravest of them stepped forward and said, well, dear monster, we are bringing you the finest harvest we have. There are the most golden of carrots that we pulled from our soil. There are the finest of apples, with the sides that pink, that they smell and look nicer than the baby's cheek. There are tulips and forget-me-not. There are daisies and other finest of flowers that our women gathered. There are baskets weaved by our children. There is baked bread and cheese and many other great things here for you to eat and never be hungry for the whole year. "Well, are there any nuts there?" said the monster. And the speaker got startled. He looked back at the others and they start whispering around, trying to find out if there are any nuts. "Oh, is there nuts? Is there what was this? Did you pack any nuts? Did you put any nuts? What kind?" But as the whispers traveled, none of them came back with the answer yes. I am sorry, Mr. Monster, but no, there are no nuts here, no nuts. We don't grow them. Please forgive us." "Oh," said the monster, "I want some nuts. Get me some nuts or I will eat you all," shouted the monster. And everyone got so afraid that they rushed all the way down, scattering around and screaming and yelling. Afraid, they ran for their life. And only the little puppy stayed. He was playing with flowers on the field as all of this was unraveling. And as expected, he got so caught by the play and his ears that he hasn't seen what was unraveling in front of him. He jumped from place to place, and then he spotted a butterfly on another flower and followed it, left and then right and then to the side. And then as she flew out and sat on the rock, he suddenly noticed a huge black shape. But peculiarly, it was stretching from the rock. He got super excited and thought that, hey, maybe I could play with this. He jumped and tried to bite it. His teeth met. He tried again, but again his teeth met. Although he was going through this black matter of the monster, there seemed to be emptiness there. He tried a couple more times, but nothing. He thought, "Woof!" Confused and disappointed, he looked around. Well, where is this monster? What sort of nonsense is that? And so he followed the black shape, following it from where it was coming from. And as he walked and jumped to the right and the left and the side, the black shape took him to the back of the rock. And there, enjoying life in the sun, eating the finest of apples, lay the red squirrel. She was full already from all the offerings that she gathered. She was rubbing her belly, stretched out. Ah, what a great life, she said. And as she saw the puppy, she smiled and dropped him an apple. Here, I've got a plenty, she said. They'll bring more next time.